A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thought. He loses touch with reality. A good servant, but a bad master, and lives in a world of illusion. And all so-called civilized people have increasingly become crazy and self-destructive.
Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror. So today we're going to be doing our verses on 1989's Pet Sematary versus 2019's Pet Sematary.
So as many of you know, 1989 Pet Sematary was my very first ever horror movie. I was like 8 years old and it scared the crap out of me. And this movie honestly means a lot to me.
Well, let's get right into it and let's talk about 1989's Pet Sematary. So 1989's Pet Sematary not only means the world to Ashley, but it means the world to me. And something that I think is super underrated about this movie that not a lot of people talk about is the soundtrack and the score. Oh, yeah. The score from this movie is haunting. It is scary. It is well placed, but it's uplifting when it needs to be. And I would be lying if I didn't say Pet Sematary by the Ramones is one of my favorite Ramones songs of all time. I love this song. Our kids love this song.
Yeah, it's an amazing song. We listen to it in the car all the time on drives. Like our kids even will ask to listen to it. That's how good this song is.
It is. And if you guys have never heard it, I have a link to the music video down here in the description. It is still to this day my very favorite original song made for a movie. It's right up there with Ninja Rap from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. So that should show you how much this soundtrack means to me. So before we start to talk about a lot of the effective scenes in the movie, I wanted to touch real quick about how important the score and the soundtrack is to this movie.
So let's get into the movie and talk about some foreshadowing here. How Judd, he saves Gage from going out into that busy road where all the semis are going down, you know?
Yeah. And he actually tells him, you know, that this is not a very good road.
I live just across the road. You want to watch out for that road. Yeah, that's a good story. A good walk. I'll take you up there sometime.
I don't care how many times I hear that. I'm going to fall in love with it again every single time. I love you, Herman Munster.
And say it over and over for the next, like, week, I swear.
Right.
How about the jump scare? This really got me.
Scared the life out of me, Church.
I love the shot of the trail, too. Like how you have that trail.
Yeah.
You know, before he jumps to give you that kind of, like you see, we were talking about foreshadowing earlier. This kind of gives you that creepy type of feeling. And I like in this one, they really go in depth about the Micmac Indians, and this was their burial ground, and that's why the ground is the way it is. But once the ground started to turn sour, the Micmac Indians moved on to different ground. And I think that's very important in this movie that we don't get a lot of in the remake, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I love the fact that they made the Micmac Indians such an important, crucial part of the movie. You know, they at least gave it a name. You know, this is why this is happening. So I thought that was really, really good. And they even go into, have you ever buried a person up there? You know, and I love Judd's reaction when he asks him.
Christ on his throne, no.
You know, I absolutely love that. So I just wanted to say, you know, including the Indian burial ground, I think is very, very important to the whole aspect of the film.
For sure. Yeah, you definitely need that aspect to have the full film. And,
exactly.
So how about the nanny, the one that's always got that stomach ache? You know, she deals with it, but she can't deal with it anymore, so she hangs herself. Why? Like, what did that do for the movie? In my opinion, nothing.
The only reason they even had that in the movie was to kind of push Ellie towards talking about death. But I just feel like they could have handled this so much better than just include. This is the one thing about this movie that I really, really don't like at all is the nanny storyline. I'm with you. I don't think it has a point at all.
Yeah.
But the good part about it is we get a Stephen King cameo. So you can see our boy Stephen King here. I love the fact that he cameos in a lot of the movies that his films were made on. So seeing the Stephen King cameos to me was always really, really cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about something that is heartbreaking in this movie, and that is the funeral scene.
Oh, my God.
Where they're fighting, the dad and
the grandpa.
And grandpa are fighting, and Gage falls out of his...
You see him rock inside the coffin when it falls, and Lewis is about to really go crazy.
It's like, this is not the time or the place for that. Like, I don't care what situation you guys got going on. No, like, you both lost somebody you love. Like, that was just horrible. And it really, like, breaks my heart watching it.
To think about that.
Yeah.
You know, you've lost your kid, and then your kid's coffin gets knocked over at the funeral.
Yeah.
No way,
and his poor little, lifeless body.
And I like how in this one they go in depth about the Timothy Bateman story.
Yes.
Timothy Bateman.
Timothy Bateman.
They see that this guy was lost his life fighting for our country. They sent him back home to be buried, and his father buried him in the Pet Sematary. And in this one, we actually get shots of Timothy Bateman coming back.
Yeah.
And then we get shots of them.
How evil he is.
Yeah, when he's scratching his own face.
Yes, and all the things that he's doing, and it's just like he's not a human.
Right. And then they go, and the mafia mob mentality. They go and they burn the house down, and the dad dies in there with him. It's still my son.
Yeah, like how heartbreaking is that?
You get your son back, and he's evil. After he had fought for our country. So I love that they go really in depth. In the remake, they talk a tiny bit about it, but we didn't want to do an actual versus part on that because they didn't talk about it enough. But the Timothy Bateman part in this I thought was really, really cool because you got to see more aspects of the Pet Sematary, not just our family, our animals. We got to see others that have gone through the same type of situation.
So how about Rachel, the realization of what Ellie says?
Pascal. Where do I know that name? Pascal? Was she saying Pascal?
So yeah, that's another one that I really like. And a big part of this movie is the foreshadowing. There's a lot of foreshadowing.
So much foreshadowing.
Like this scene right here where in the background Rachel sees the picture of the little boy with the cane and the top hat. And then when Gage goes to her, he's wearing that top hat and has the cane and the blue dress. That's another one that I really I love that foreshadowing in that scene. And it's one that I've always paid attention to, even because this one they don't put way far in the background. This one's in your face, and when she's on that phone call, the camera is centered on that picture. So there's going to be something important happening with that picture. Even when we were little kids,
right?
We knew to pay attention to that picture.
Absolutely. How about this?
Gage and I will get you
for letting us die.
Yes. And now it's not just my sister, it's my son.
Right.
We're going to get you. And trust me, there will be a lot of Zelda talk.
Zelda is what
here.
Nightmares are made of for me.
Well, what about when he's taking Gage to the Pet Sematary and he looks down and you see the face, Victor's face. I assume it's supposed to be Victor, but when the face comes up and he closes his eyes and then he looks, see, it's all in my head. I'm fine. Like that's another one that I'm just like, as a kid, that scared me. That was so scary to me when I seen that as a kid. Like that rocked me to my core.
Another heartbreaking part is where he has to again kill Gage again. No fair.
Yeah,
and it's like he already lost him, and now he has to lose him all over again.
And the look on his face when he puts the needle into his neck.
Yes.
And Gage does the.
I literally tear up every time.
You talked about it a little bit, but let's hear Gage say it.
No fair. No fair. No fair.
How can that not break your heart?
I know.
And when he falls and smashes his head on the
Poor
wall.
kid, I know.
He totally smokes his head on that wall.
He took one for the team there.
Yeah. But you also have Lewis, after he gets everybody out, he decides to burn the house down.
Yeah.
And when he's walking by the window, I love how the fact when he's walking by that window right there, it blows up right behind him.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have planned that any better from that standpoint.
So let's talk about the gross kiss.
For fuck's sake.
When
Holy
she comes
shit.
back and, she's all zombified and they make out.
She's oozing from her eye.
Come on, you want to kiss me if I was oozing from my eye?
Hell no. You barely want to kiss me now and I'm not oozing from the eye.
I guess we know who loves whose wife more.
Fuck, man. But one last thing I want to talk about. Our boy Victor. Victor to me is such a crucial part of this movie, and you could even make the argument Victor is the hero of this movie.
Absolutely.
He's trying everything in his power to save Lewis because Lewis tried to save him.
Yeah.
And that imagery is just so special to me, and it's so important. And this scene that you're watching right now, when he walks through Victor, and Victor's like, please, Lewis, no. And Lewis is like, it's all right. This is going to be different this time. She just died a while ago. That was, out of all the scenes in this movie as a child, this is the one that scared me the most. And I don't know if it's because I couldn't quite comprehend the effect of, you know, him walking through the ghost.
Right.
And then the ghost dissipating. Like, he tried, he failed, and now he's gone. He's gone into whatever is next.
Right.
And I think that imagery and that scenery is so beautiful. So, we talked about 1989's Pet Sematary, a movie that we both enjoy very, very much. You want to get back into the 2019 remake now?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, so now we're going to talk about 2019's Pet Sematary. And this is not a movie that is bad, but it's a movie that showed me something in the trailer that I really wish we could have gotten more of a backstory on. But before we get there, I want to talk about the first jump scare we see in the movie. That one actually got us.
Totally got us.
It got us in the theater, and we had like 3 years in between watching these. It got us again when we watched it again, so it was really cool to see that jump scare again.
So something that we wish we would have gotten more backstory on, and that's the kids that are walking in the masks with, you know, with their Halloween costume masks, with a dead dog and a wheelbarrow walking down the trail. Like, I wish we would have gotten more of that.
So do I. When we seen the trailer, that was one of the first things that turned me on to this movie that I really wanted to see. I wish we could get a movie of that, or maybe even a fan film in the next year or two that's all about those kids and how important they are to the Wendigo and the town. Possibly, maybe. But until then, let's talk about another jump scare that I really like. It's all about trucks, you know? It's all about the truck jump scares. What I love about this movie is it does have more jump scares than the first one, but they're not cheap jump scares. Every jump scare is well placed, and this does not rely on the jump scares.
Yeah,
it's more about the story.
Absolutely.
With some jump scares thrown in.
So let's talk about this jump scare.
That's the last time we're going to show you a jump scare, I promise. But that's another important one, I feel like. And we were talking a little bit ago about the Wendigo. What do you got to say about it, Judd?
The Wendigo.
Well, I thought you were going to say a little more than that. But my thing is, at least we get a mention of the Wendigo in this film.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's very important. Like, in the first one, we got the, you know, the Micmac Indians and the Indian burial ground. But in this one, we get a little bit of the Wendigo. At least we get that mention.
A little bit. But again, I would have liked more, going more into detail about it.
If only somebody was going to make a fan film that was all about the Wendigo and the little kids in their masks and how important they are to the town.
You never know. You never know what could happen.
But anyway, so another thing I want to talk about real quick is when they let Church go. You know, he's like, he realizes he brought the cat back. The cat is evil. He drives it out to the middle of nowhere and he lets the cat go. Like, that's a scene that I was just like, that's awesome. Like, and it looks great when the cat is just sitting there watching him drive away. Like, oh, you
like,
fucked up.
You just left me here. Like, I'll get you.
You done fucked up, Aaron.
So anyways, like I just said, I'll get you for that. Church, he comes back and scares the shit out of us.
He comes back, and this is one of the saddest scenes in the whole film. And we'll get to there in the verses, but I love how they had Church play an integral part of this scene. And what I love about this is at this point, Gage is running to the road, and you see the semi coming, and Lewis comes and saves Gage at the last minute, which was a complete flip-flop.
Yeah, you didn't see that coming.
Didn't see it coming, did you?
Right, and I love the fact... Nice. I love the fact that they put that in there. You have that fake out, that red herring of Gage running to the road. I really do like that scene.
So how about when Judge gets drugged? You know, Lewis wants to go and dig up her body, and so he drugs Judge.
And I love this scene because when he drugs Judd, he's just like, I gotta close my eyes for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, and it's intelligent because, like you said, he's going to dig up Ellie, and he knows that Judd is gonna stop him.
Yeah, Judd isn't gonna approve of it.
Right.
So.
Another scene I like is when Gage is crying in the bedroom, and he's saying, "Pack out," and you know she picks him up. Rachel picks him up, and then you pan over and you actually see that Victor is in the room with him, not saying much, which we'll talk about again in the verses. But that is one scene of Victor in this film that I really, really like a lot.
Yeah. So how about Ellie when she comes back? So she seems normal. She seems like she's their daughter.
Where did I go?
Yeah, like where did I go, you know?
She doesn't just come back as a monster.
Right.
She seems like she's genuinely a knight. It's her. he's got his little girl back.
Like,
then we start to get a little glimpse when she's dancing in the living room and she's slamming into stuff and breaking it on purpose. Maybe things aren't exactly what they seem with young Ellie here.
Yeah, she's not that sweet little girl anymore.
Right.
So how about when Judd sees Ellie upstairs in the upstairs through the window? Like, I love that scene.
My favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like in the 2019 remake, this is my favorite scene. Just he looks up and he sees her and she ducks, and then the fear that comes on his face.
Yeah, because
like
he knows now, like what, you know.
He suspected it.
Right.
Now he knows.
Yes.
Like, it's so good. And then when Ellie goes to his house and she's attacking Judd, she actually has on her mask. And it's funny, it's almost like they put the mask on when they're about to kill somebody. And it'd be really nice if somebody made a fan film about that, possibly within the next year, all about the Wendigo and the kids in their masks and the effect that that has on the town. Sorry. I went somewhere there for a second.
Yeah, so how about when her face changes to Norma's face?
Okay, now me and Ashley are going to argue about this one.
We are going to totally argue. I don't like it. Like, I think that it's silly. I don't like how she switches. She's a shapeshifter, yeah.
I love it. I don't love the idea so much, but I love it when her face actually morphs back from Norma to Ellie, like, and it looks good.
It does look good. They did a good job, but I just think it's so silly.
Right. And in the book, you know, it's more of a shape-shifting thing, but I'm with you. Like, I want it to be this little girl. The Wendigo is taking over this little girl. I don't want it to be able to shapeshift. That, to me, that's lazy writing. And I love Stephen King, but to me, that's a lazy form of writing when you have a shapeshifter. It always has been for me.
So another scene that I want to talk about is when Rachel sees Ellie is alive, and she's like, she goes up to give her a hug, and she's just pushing her away. You know, like, this isn't my daughter.
Yes.
And it's so impactful, that scene.
What a great scene. Like you said, this is the one where, you know, she knows now.
Like, this isn't my kid.
And even Gage, he's like, Ellie!
Yeah.
You know,
She said, my daughter's dead. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Such a powerful scene. So we've told you some of the things we like from Pet Sematary 1989. We've talked about some of the things that we really like from Pet Sematary 2019. But let's take the two of them, let's verse them against each other, and see which one we like the most.
So we talked about things that we like from the original and things that we liked from the remake. Now we're going to talk about things that are similar between the two, and we're going to verse them.
Well, let's start off with the cast, first of all. Which cast do you prefer, the original cast or the remake's cast?
So I have to go with the original cast. I don't think you can ever replace Fred Gwynne. Although John Lithgow, he did phenomenal. He brought what he could.
Yeah.
But he's no Fred Gwynne, in my opinion.
That's no fault of his own.
No, absolutely not. And then we have Brad. Brad
Greenquist?
Yeah, that was Victor.
Yeah.
In the original, again, can't replace him. He did phenomenal, and he was scary, and I have to go with the original.
I'm with you. I'm going with the original on this one as well. There's too much of iconic moments in the original with these characters. I mean, if we were going character by character, I would actually take Ellie from the remake, and I might even take Rachel from the remake. But when we're going overall characters, I'm going to stick with the OG on this one. Those characters are just way too important to me.
Okay.
So what about meeting Judd? In the original, we already talked about, you have him coming out and saving Gage there in the road and giving some of the iconic lines. Or in the remake, you have him finding Ellie after she's been stung by a hornet, taking the stinger out and kind of rubbing dirt on it. Rub some dirt on it, you'll feel better. Which one of those do you prefer?
I like the original with this as well. I like how they all meet him, and he kind of explains about the road, and you get all those iconic lines like you talked about. And in the remake, it's okay, but it's just Ellie that meets him, and they're a little like standoffish with him at first. So.
Right. And I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with the original on this one as well, just because you kind of see him as a superhero already the very first time you meet him. So what about when Victor gets hit? In the original, you have everybody running him up the stairs. Oh my God, he's hurt. In the remake, you have him knocking on the window and then just wheeling him right in, not even giving him a grand entrance. So which one do you prefer of the two?
Well, he needed his grand entrance. You know, I just feel like that was more emotional, and you know, people are crying, and yeah.
I'm with you. I'm going to the original 100% on this one. Now, I want to talk about the dream, because the dream is something that's very, very important in this movie. And in the original, you have this line right here.
I don't like this dream.
Who said you were dreaming?
And that clip alone right there is going to be the reason that I choose the original over the remake on this one. I love that. You know, I don't like this dream. I just really, really like that whole scene.
Yeah. I agree with you. When he says, you know, I don't like this dream, and then Victor comes back with, who says this was a dream? Like, it gives me goosebumps every time. So the original takes it for me, for sure.
For sure. Well, let's talk about Zelda's death. Now, in the original, you have her choking to death on the bed, and Rachel coming over, you know, hitting her on the back, trying to help her out a little bit. And then in the remake, you have her going to get her food from the dumbwaiter and falling down the dumbwaiter and dying that way. Which one do you prefer?
I actually have to go with a remake on this one. I think that it's, you know, she knew not to use the elevator, the dumb waiter, you know, her parents told her not to, even though she was just a kid. Like, kids make mistakes.
Kids shouldn't be left alone to take care of their dying older siblings either.
Absolutely, you were absolutely right. But it's more effective. Like, she opens it and you see her, you know, dead. Like, yeah, I have to go with the remake on that one.
See, and I'm also going to go with the remake. I feel like it's more impactful. It's scarier. It's not just her choking to death. Like, you have that effect of her falling and really having that lasting effect on her sister. So what about when Church returns? Now, in the original, you have Lewis walking in and Church jumping out and Lewis falling backwards all scared. You know, you have that jump scare. And then in the remake, you have Church hiding in the closet. You know, what are you talking about, Daddy? Church is in the closet. Which one of those two did you like better?
I went with the original on that one. I like that jump scare, and it scared me as a kid. Right. Scared the crap out of me. So you know.
I'm actually going to go with the remake on this one. I think that it's more of a psychological thing. You know, it's fucking with Lewis. And I love how right after they look at it, how Rachel's like, well, it's a good thing you're not a vet. You know, they thought it was dead. So I'm going to go with the remake actually on this one as well. Now, there's two scenes in this movie that are similar. Both are fucking gross. So in the original, you have Lewis getting in the bath and Church throwing the dead rat into the bath with Lewis and him throwing it out. Or in the remake, you have them trying to get frisky and Church puts a half-dead bird on the bed. It's still alive and kicking. So which of those two do you prefer?
The original. I hate mice, rats, anything like that. And that freaked me out. Like, if that ever happened to me, I would probably drown myself.
Oh, I'd instantly die. I wouldn't even have to drown. I would just die. My heart would just stop.
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's the reason I'm going with the original as well. And it's bloody. You know, the blood in the bath with him. Like, it's so
awful.
fucking gross, man. Like, I'm with you. Now let's talk about Judd's dog, Spot. In the original, you have, you know, him telling the story to Lewis about his dog and how he buried his dog up at the Pet Sematary. And we get to see Judd as a young man and his mother, you know, he stinks of the ground you buried him in. Or in the remake, he talks about how he had a dog at one point. Which of the two do you like more?
The original. When I think of this movie, like, even as a kid, that scene is one that I would talk about. Like, that scene where she's hanging up the clothes and you have this vicious dog, it scared me to my core, and I think about it all the time.
I knew that was one of your favorite scenes. That's why I wanted to do this. Obviously, we're going with the original on this one. We could have left this one off, but just because it's one of her favorite scenes, I added this one in. But I love the fact that you actually get this depth of Judd. You know, even as a little boy, you know, he did this.
Right.
And he brought his dog back.
And he knew what was going to happen, you know. Right. He knew.
Now, let's give an obvious one. Do you prefer this?
Sometimes dead is better.
Or do you prefer this?
Sometimes dead is better.
I mean, the remake, right? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding. No, the original, just the line, the way it's portrayed, everything about it is just amazing.
Perfection.
To me. Yeah.
And I agree. The original. And again, this is nothing against John Lithgow. You know, he did great. I think that he did amazing. If they had never had an original 1989 Pet Sematary, I think the 2019 one would hold up on its own.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the cast is great. I do love everything about. There's a lot of this movie I love. But there's just so much more about the OG that I think personally is better. And obviously this is one of those parts. You know, sometimes that is better. The way he says it, that, you know, northeastern accent that he has.
It's just chilling, and I love it.
Well, let's go from something we love to something we loathe. Do you prefer, and I hate saying prefer, guys, this is weird, but which one affected you more? The scene in the original of Gage getting hit by the semi, you see his shoe rolling and Lewis doing the why, or in the remake when we've seen Gage get saved and then, the semi turns over and it still comes and it ends up hitting Ellie and killing Ellie. Which of those two affected you the most?
I have to go with the original. Even, we just rewatched this not that long ago. We did both the rewatches. And still to this day, it makes me get teary-eyed. I feel this overwhelming sadness every time, ever since I was a child. And just, they go through the pictures of him
while he's screaming.
It's so impactful. And it's chilling. And
I agree with you. I'm going to go with Gage's from the original, but I do want to add in Ellie's is fucking awful too, because you have Lewis walking around the semi and Rachel just falls. She can't control herself.
She just can't, she can't even fathom what's going on. She just passes out. And, I would never want to be in that situation, and you never know how you would react with that.
They did a great job portraying the painful emotions in the remake as well.
They did, and you feel it. You feel it in the remake too, but it's just not the same for me.
Right. So in order for them to die and come back, they got to die, but then they get to come back. So which one of their don't call it a comeback, but which one of their comebacks do you like better, when Gage comes back or when Ellie comes back?
So I have to go with Ellie, the remake on this one, because we already talked about this a little bit. When she comes back, she's almost normal.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it worked. I got my daughter back. She's a sweet little girl, and I like that.
I'm going to go with that one as well, the remake. When Gage comes back, he's inherently evil. The first thing you see Gage do when he comes back is kill Judd.
Right.
You don't get that in this one. When you see Ellie come back, she goes to her dad, I love you. What happened to me? Did I die? He's giving her the bath and he's brushing her hair, and then you see the staples in the back of her head. Like, you feel like, I think the Wendigo is so much more evil in this one because he actually gives them their daughter back for a second. Obviously, he doesn't. It's obviously, she's under the influence of the Wendigo the whole time.
Yeah, and he's just pulling him in.
He's sucking in those emotions.
Yeah.
Like feeding off those emotions. So while we're talking about some audio, what about this one? You have in the original.
Never get out of bed again. Never get out of bed again.
Or you have in the remake.
Now you'll never get out of bed again.
Which of those two impacted you the most?
The original.
Not even close.
Oh my gosh.
Original too.
Like, that is, I have nightmares about that for weeks. Weeks. Like, that's what nightmares are made of for me. The original.
I'm with you. The original on this one. Just terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. Now we're going to talk about a couple different deaths here. Let's start off with probably the second most iconic besides the truck, Judd's death. Now in the original, you have him getting his Achilles heel cut open and then cut through his mouth, and then Gage eats his neck and it looks amazing. And in the remake, you have him getting his heel cut and then Ellie just fucking going ham. And I mean, she just stabs the shit out of this guy repeatedly. So which one of those are you going to go with?
I'm going to go with the original. Cute little Gage, just
little Miko Hughes.
Yeah, ripping out his neck, I love that.
I'm also going to go with the original, but, asterisk, I love evil Ellie here. I love, because then this is the part where she shows him Norma's face. So before she kills Judd, she breaks his heart again. You're not my Norma. Norma's in hell waiting for you, Judson. And then she jumps and just stabs the shit out of him. It is so evil and so dark, and I love it. But the original has the neck bite. So I got to go with that neck bite because it's practical. It looks good.
It looked so good, yeah.
I'm going with the neck bite. Now, what about Rachel? Now, in the original, you have her coming home, and you, like I said, you have Gage walking up to her in that blue dress thing. And then the next thing you know, she's hanging from the upstairs, and Gage jumps down on top of Lewis and attacks him. Or in the remake, you have Ellie torturing her, stabbing her a couple times, and then you have the really final blow where she's sitting beside her, and she's like, "Don't call me mommy. I'm not your fucking mommy," which is also a line in Orphan.
It is.
I love it. And she's like, "Then go be with your daughter," and she gives her that last stab in the side. Which of those two did you prefer?
I chose the original, and you can call me bland or boring or whatever, but I think it's effective. You let your imagination.
There's way too much imagination in the original. I'm going with the remake on this one because how the fuck did little Miko Hughes get her all the way up into the attic to hang her?
He's evil. He is not a little boy anymore.
Sure he is.
He's a demon.
Lewis throws him around. I don't know. I like Rachel's kill in the remake. I think that, and I just love that I'm not your fucking mommy. Then go be with your daughter. And she stabs her again. Like, it's heartbreaking to watch it happen. So, now the last death we're going to talk about is Lewis's death. Now, in the original, it's never really said that Lewis died. But, she takes the knife, picks it up, it cuts to black, and you get the stabbing, or the scream again, I'm sorry. Or in the remake, we actually see he's getting ready to cut Ellie's head off. She's like, we can be a family, Daddy. We can be a family. And he hesitates for a second, and then he gets stabbed through his back, literally stabbed in the back, and he dies. Which one of those two did you like more?
The original. I just like how she comes in and she's, all zombified and they make out. Like, as gross as it is, he still loves her even though she's dead and a zombie. And then she kills him.
We don't even know if he dies, so I'm going with the remake. He's dead.
I mean, again, you gotta let your imagination take over.
Too much imagination for me. I love the remake because you actually have him having that second thought of, maybe we can be a family. Maybe it's possible for us to be this family. So I am going to go with the remake on this one. Now, in the original, after Lewis burns the house down, he's carrying Rachel to the Pet Sematary. I talked about it a little bit, and he walks through Victor. Mm-hmm. Or in the remake, you have Ellie dragging Rachel to the Pet Sematary to bury her. Because one thing that we didn't talk about that I really do love, when Rachel's dying, she says to Lewis, do not bury me in that fucking place. Do not put me up there. And you have, her getting dragged up there by her daughter. So which of those two did you like more?
So we're talking about little Gage couldn't hang his mom. How is Ellie dragging?
She's a demon.
Okay.
She's not a little girl anymore. She's a demon.
It only reverses when it's helpful for your situation.
There's a big difference between dragging somebody and carrying them into an attic and hanging them.
The original. I feel like it's more impactful for sure. When he's carrying her and, like you said, walks through Victor's ghost.
100% the original.
Yeah.
I do love the scene of Ellie, though. Like I said, I like the remake of this movie. I really do. Like, now that I've gone into it, like, with an open mind and I'm not just being a cynical asshole, I really like the remake. And a lot of these were actually genuinely hard for me to pick between. This one wasn't. I love him walking through Victor. It's one of my favorite scenes in cinema history. But I do like the Ellie one, but nothing touches that original scene. So for a movie to be great, it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the end of the Pet Semataries. In the original, we already talked about it. You have them making out with all the pus and ooze. Fucking gross. Mm-hmm. And then, her picking up the knife, cut to black, a stabbing sound, and him screaming. Or in the remake, you have, obviously Lewis was killed up there. You have him buried in the Pet Sematary, and then you have the family coming back with Gage sitting in the car by himself. The car unlocks, and the family, you cut to black at that point, but we can guess where this is going while Church is watching from the car. So which of these two do you like better?
The original. I hate that freaking ending in the remake. And this is, honestly, the ending is one of the reasons that I didn't give this movie a fair chance. I hated that ending, and I was like, oh, this movie sucks. Like, right after we watched it in the theater, I was like, I hate this. It sucks. On rewatch, though, my mind has changed a little bit. But yeah, the original for sure.
I'm going with the remake. I mean, they're both dark endings.
Yeah.
Neither one of these movies has a happy ending. And I will say this. Not only do I have the link for the Ramones' Pet Sematary music video down in the description, I also have the link for the alternate ending of Pet Sematary 2019 down here in the description.
Which I might have chose that one.
So much better. Like, I love
probably, if that would have been the actual ending, I probably would have said remake for this one. Yeah. For sure.
I'm still going to the remake because I like how dark it is. But the ending to the theatrical ending is dark and good. But this alternate ending that you guys can watch down here in the description, I think is so much better. Mm-hmm. They totally should have went with that ending. So for those of you keeping track at home, I gave 11 points to the original, 6 points to the remake.
And I gave 15 to the original and 2 to the remake.
Well, just like always, that doesn't mean anything. We're going to go into which one of these films we actually preferred more. So you want to go first? Which one do you like better, the original or the remake?
So I'm sure it's really not a surprise, but the original, it holds a very special place in my heart. And I honestly just think it's better. A lot of the cast is better. And the kills, you know, things like that, like, it's just better in my opinion. Like, the lasting scenes that stick with you, the scariness of Victor, the scariness of Zelda. Like, Zelda terrified me. Victor terrified me. The original, it's so good.
Victor and Zelda from the original are also the reason I'm going with the original. Those characters are in Pet Sematary 2019, but they don't have that same oomph. I think Pet Sematary 1989 is the far scarier film. I think it's the atmosphere is scarier, the scenery is scarier, the line deliveries are scarier. But again, I'm not shitting on Pet Sematary 2019. If we would have done this versus the day after this came out, this episode would have been a whole lot different. I'll tell you that.
It probably wouldn't have gotten any, the verses. It probably wouldn't have gotten any.
Nothing. But we've let it marinate. We gave it a couple years. We rewatched it, which I suggest you do as well.
Yeah.
And I genuinely really, really like Pet Sematary 2019. Now, before we go, we're going to give you our actual ranking. So what would your ranking be, 0 to 5 skulls, on Pet Sematary 2019?
I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. And what about Pet Sematary 1989?
A 4.5 out of 5.
Okay. My ranking for 2019's, since that was my runner-up, I'm going to give that 2.5 skulls. And then for 1989, I'm going to give that 3.5 skulls. Obviously, both these movies have a lot that I don't truly love, whether it be in the original with the nanny stuff, whether it be in the remake with the very little mentioning of the Wendigo and not carrying that on, or teasing me with the kids in the masks and not giving me more. There are things in both these movies that I don't truly love with all my heart, so I don't think either one of these are close to being a perfect movie. But I really genuinely like them both. I'm definitely more cynical of the two of us, so for me to give something 2.5 skulls is still really, really good in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, between the two, I'm going to go with 1989, but I do like them both a lot, and I could go on and do a whole episode about both these movies, but that's not what you're here for. You were here to watch these movies fight each other, and that's exactly what they did. So leave us your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, become a member of Sledgehammer Horror for some behind-the-scenes information. You might even hear us talk about somebody that's doing a fan film about those kids and the Wendigo sometime in the next year. Maybe there'll be some information on there about that.
You never know.
But until next time, guys, I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
Keep talking horror.
Stay who you are.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.